And so one of the things that you need muses. You need sources of inspiration. And so I thought I would show you my muses. These are actually the guys that I keep sitting on my desk while I'm writing. I got this guy. And you'll notice the theme here, right? And he teaches me to be stupidly funny. And I have this guy, who's the greatest supervillain in history. Your kids will know him, even if you don't. This is Dr. Doofenshmirtz, right? And if we're really quiet, you may talk to us. Hang on. Not loud enough. Harry the Platypus, your timing is impeccable. And I got this guy, because growing up, I was a Star Wars junkie, right? And because he's soft, so when I'm sad and depressed on those 6 days, I just rub him against my cheek. And I have this guy. All right, for the daily double, who can tell me who he is? Anyone? Anyone? You can't even see it, can you? It's like a voodoo doll. Tom Cruise? It is not an old Tom Cruise. This is actually Mark Twain, right? Who was the first literary author that I fell in love with back in high school. And Twain, of course, was what's called a satirist, which means he made fun of everybody equally. And that's, that's kind of my writing, right? I make fun of everything, including myself. And then finally, I have these guys, right? The Minions. Because I wrote a book called Minion, right? So don't get it confused. If you do go out and buy my book Minion, you won't find any little yellow guys in it. But they're funny, right? And they talk like, banana, ooh, banana, which is cool. But of course, the best place to go to get inspiration is...
The library.
The library, exactly. Where they house books. Right, you gotta read. Every author who has ever written a book about writing has said that the number one thing you do to become a writer is to read as much as possible, right? I read every day. Sometimes it's only 20 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours. It depends. When you're a writer, you actually get to treat reading as part of your job, which is really cool. As a librarian, you get to do the same thing. No, you don't. Librarians never read. They hate books. Seems ironic, doesn't it? Anyways, there's a nice quote by George Carroll. So that's the first step, right? Get inspired. Find inspiration in all places around you. Tip number 2, you have to write what you know. Cats suck, right? Now, what does that mean, write what you know? Like you would say, Mr. Anderson, you write about superheroes, right? Can you fly? I could try. It will fail miserably, and I'd look awkward, especially on video. But, no, I can't fly. So when I say write what I know, what do I mean? Well, my book, Sidekicked, is about a kid who's got middle grade problems, right? He's in middle school. Sure, he fights evil, but at the same time, he fails math quizzes, right? And he has a girl that he's too awkward to talk to. These are the kinds of things I know. I know what it's like to grow up in middle school and be awkward, right? And so it's infused in my character. You have drama in your lives, that drama's gonna find its way into your writing in one form or another, right? Even if you don't write what you know, even if you have to Google sort of the particulars of your plot, it's the emotion, it's the emotional truth that comes from you that, it has to be authentic, right? Otherwise, you're just going to mess it up. And Mark Twain says, get your facts first, then distort them as you please. And that's essentially what we do. We start with a kernel of truth, and then we put a fiction around it. And that fiction, of course, is what's fun and what drives it. But by the end of the book, if you don't have that kernel, if you don't have something true that you took away from it, it wasn't worth reading. All right, tip 3, and we're back to inspiration here. More inspiration. A story can start with anything. And we're going to do a little exercise. I want you to reach into your pocket, if you have a pocket, and I want you to pull out one item, if you can. I apparently have a pack of cinnamon trident gum. All right. I'm going to find one interesting item, and we're going to tell a story about it. You have a used tissue?
Yes, slightly used, yes.
Slightly used. All right, we're going to go with this one.
There's still some life in it.
No, just don't. I think I just.
All right, slightly used tissue. Don't unfold it. This is a keepsake now. Awesome. So
Sign it later.
you guys have items, right? So as I'm sort of free-forming here, look at your item and think to yourself, how could you start a story with this? Like, what would this story be if all I had to work with was this? All right, tip number 4. This is an important one. Embrace the blah. Raise your hand if you've ever had writer's block. You just can't think of what to write next, right? So you can probably guess what I write when I have writer's block. I write the word blah. right? And if I can't think of a word, I write the word blah, and if I can't think of a sentence, I write the words blah, blah. And if I can't think of a paragraph, I write blah, blah, blah. And if I can't think of a chapter, I write chapter 10 blah. And sometimes, when I'm finished writing a novel, it turns out I've only got like 5,000 words, and 300 of them are the word blah. So then what I do is I click on Find and Replace in Microsoft Word, and I type in blah, and now I have to write the whole thing over again. But the point is, I got from beginning to end without ever stopping, right? And this is what you have to do. You have to find your filler word. Whatever it is that's going to keep you from getting writer's block, you just put it in there because you can come back and do it later. Most of my best writing occurs after the fact, which means I've written the first draft and I go back and I think, all right, I've got this big space here, right? I need to do something with it. But I've had distance, I've had time, I've had 6 or 7 showers, I've played with my kids, I've read lots of books. I've done all these things to renew my creative energy in that space. So now I can come back to that blah and figure out what I was supposed to say. And it almost always works. All right, tip number 5, explore the 1 million. 1 million is the number of words in the English language currently, thereabouts, right? So this is how many we have to work with. My guess is your stories probably had, I don't know, 300, 500, 1,000 words in them, maybe 200. I don't know how long your stories are, right? Think of all the words that we have to choose from. How do we possibly choose just the right ones, right? Well, we have to know what they all are. The more you can expand your vocabulary, the better writer you'll be. And in fact, we create a new word every 100 minutes, or 15 new words a day. And the most famous dictionary in the world is called the Oxford English Dictionary. Well, the most famous English dictionary is called the Oxford English Dictionary. And it's like the dictionary that dictionary, whatever you call them, files, go to find new words. And they put new words in all the time. And these are the ones they added recently. Bookaholic, death spiral, empowering, honking, right? Does anybody know what honking is? Turns out it's not just the horn thing. It also means to smell really bad. Right? So raise your hand if you have a honking brother or sister. Yeah, I hear you. Right? They come home, they take off their socks and shoes. Man, it like stings your eyes, right? And you're like, dude, put the shoes back on. Scientificness? I didn't even know that was a word until yesterday. But it is. That's like the quality of something being scientific, right? So this presentation has a high degree of scientificness. Awesome. And wackadoo, which is just crazy, right? So, it's not something to call your parents and except it's behind your back. My mom is so wackadoo, but it almost sounds like a good thing, right? Whereas crazy doesn't. I would be wackadoo, right? So, use your words, or just make them up. Shakespeare made up 1,700 words. If he can do it, why can't you make up one? Next tip, try new things. Like the semicolon, or dialect, or alliteration, or flashback, or onomatopoeia, or bass jumping. Or, you know, whatever. Whatever floats your boat. Because what you can do is proportionate to what you know. So, the one that we're going to do tonight is alliteration. Who knows what alliteration is? You get all the answers. Yeah.
It's when you use the same beginning sound or vowel sound throughout your sentence or your piece.
Right, awesome. It's using the same consonant sound over and over and over again. So, for example, in the sentence that I created, she descended the winding stairs to find him waiting for her at the bottom. We have winding and waiting, right? And we also have bottom, blood, and boots. Yay! And we also have leaving, linoleum, and look. So I actually have 3 examples of alliteration in my one measly little sentence. Tip number 7, show me, don't tell me. Just about every creative writing 101, they tell people this, right? And probably Anton Chekhov said it best. He said, don't tell me the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on the broken glass. In other words, in a story, you want to be descriptive, right? Use those 1 million words at your disposal to paint a picture, right? Use adjectives and adverbs, right? But be creative about it. So don't say he was angry, say he drove his fist repeatedly to the table, biting his knuckles, and wiped the flecks of spit from his lips. Now we know he's angry. We know how angry he is, right? So for fun, when you're having dinner together, right, and your daughter or son says, God, I'm really angry, or I'm really sad, or I'm really happy, stop them and say, show me, don't tell me, right? And force them into this creative exercise. They'll hate you for it. Tip number 8, wield figurative language like a lightsaber. 8 minutes. Awesome. I have to share these though, because these are hilarious, okay? So, a while back, the Washington Post asked high school teachers all across the nation to submit what they thought were the worst metaphors they'd ever seen in student writing. And you will take heart in knowing that you never wrote anything as bad as this. He was as tall as a 6'3" tree. John and Mary had never met. They were like two hummingbirds who had also never met. She had a deep, throaty, genuine laugh like the sound a dog makes just before it throws up. That's a compliment. I went a lot of days on that one. She grew on him like she was a colony of E. coli and he was room temperature Canadian beef. Which has a lot of merit as writing, right? Because it's nice and descriptive. The problem is maybe it's a little too descriptive in that case. The little boat gently drifted across the pond, exactly the way a bowling ball wouldn't. I think of all the things that you could just substitute there, right? The young fighter had a hungry look, the kind you get from not eating for a while. All right, that's not actually a metaphor, right? Here we go, maybe. Oh, it hurt the way your tongue hurts after you accidentally staple it to the wall. You have to wonder what life experience, right, brought that metaphor on. Or another good one that's also somewhat violent. It was an American tradition, like fathers chasing kids around with power tools. Raise your hand, dads! Ever chase your kid around with a circular saw? Right? He was deeply in love. This is probably my favorite. When she spoke, he thought he heard bells, as if she were a garbage truck backing out. Her artistic sense was exquisitely refined, like someone who can tell butter from I can't believe it's not butter. Actually, I kind of like that one, to be honest. All right, two more. It came down the stairs looking very much like something no one had ever seen before. These last two were just lazy, right? They're lazy writing. Or her vocabulary was as bad as, like, whatever. Right? So you need to wield figurative language, but I say like a lightsaber because you need to wield it carefully. Because if you don't know how to use a lightsaber, man, you're going to cut your own head off. And it's the same thing with metaphors and similes. If you're not creative, if you don't come up with original ones, right, that also work, then they're going to come back and bite you. All right. Tip number 9. Only got 2 more. Come to terms with your fallibility. And this is hard to do. But you have to realize that no piece of writing, even the ones that you've colored and put your nice covers on, is ever completely perfect. I guarantee you, as good as it is, and it's probably excellent, if you go back to it 2 years later, you're going to find something that you wanted to change. Same with me. I go back to Sidekicked, I find 3 or 4 things that I would have written differently about it, right? That doesn't matter, it's finished, it's out there. I shared it, right? Hopefully people like it. If they don't, nuts to them, whatever. The point is, you just at some point, you got to call it quits and say, I'm good, this one's done, I'm moving on to the next one. And last but not least, tip number 10, and this one's important. They're all important, but I like this one especially because I like the idea of sharing ice cream with a dog, apparently, is learn to share. Whatever you write, share it with somebody, preferably mom, right? Because you know what mom does? She sticks it on the fridge. It doesn't matter what it is, she'll find a magnet for it. She will stick it on the fridge and she will love it because it came from you. Then you need to share it with somebody who's not mom because they will be honest with you and tell you what wasn't good about it, right? But that's okay. We need the positive affirmation and we need the critical response. We need both of these things. So whatever it is that you write, make sure you share it. And thankfully, living in the age of the internet, there's so many ways that you can share it. There's so many websites out there that you can go to actually share your writing with the rest of the world.